Hello and welcome to the Incomplete Guide to Film podcast, where we're learning filmmaking together. I'm your host, Alex Pennell, and today we're going to be talking about kids' movies. Kids' movies are either one of two things, in my mind. They're meant to be films that an entire family can go and see. Mom, dad, a son in their teens, a daughter in, 10 to 12, and then a little 5-year-old youngest. That's what they're intended to be, or they're intended to be malicious corporate cash grabs for licensed properties. A good example that came out recently is Minions. That came out last year or the year before, and it wasn't that great. It was a really commercial film. If you remember, the advertising for that was everywhere. There was, I saw the top of a stadium that was painted yellow for the film. It was everywhere. It was an advertising campaign that was monstrous. Even bigger than, some of the Disney titles that come out, like Marvel is everywhere. DC, when they have something that comes out like Batman v Superman, it was everywhere. This was even more so. It seemed to permeate our society for the 6 months before the movie came out. And then the movie came out and it wasn't very great. But I feel like the studio doesn't feel like it has to be great because it's a kids' movie. And kids will like dumb crap because kids don't have good taste. I have watched things that I liked when I was a kid now and been surprised. I thought it was awesome, and then I watch it and I'm like, wow, this is really boring and kind of weird. And, then I've also watched some kid shows that are on, for the modern day kids, and a lot of them can even look like drug trips at some points. It seems to be that a lot of companies, a lot of studios, a lot of filmmakers don't seem to care about kids' movies. Don't care about making it a good story or making it make sense or making it a deep sort of narrative. And that's why, when you're an adult, you don't go see a lot of kids' movies. Because they're milk. And you're looking for real solid food. A baby drinks milk because it's easy to digest and they can't handle real food yet. And in a way, things for little babies should be that way. Things like my youngest brother, when he was a baby, Baby Einstein was huge. As a early development learning video. So we had all those, and my brother watched through them, and they were very simplistic because they were teaching babies, and that's exactly what it should be. But if you have a story-driven, especially studio film, that you're marketing to families and children, we should have something that they can look back on and, they can continue to glean wisdom from it. Kids' movies are very moralistic. We bring a character through a journey and they learn a lesson. Adult movies aren't always so black and white on it. But kids' movies are definitely, what have we learned at the end? How are we better for the journey? And I think a lot of studios forget that there's supposed to be a good story in there somewhere. And yes, I'm going to talk about Disney again, but I talk about Disney a lot because Disney seems to be doing just about everything right now. They had trouble, little back further in the past. They had trouble with their identity. They had trouble trying to figure out what they were. But I think they figured it out, and they made some really good acquisitions over the last 5 or 6 years. And, well, longer than that. But they've made some very good stories. Think back to the stuff that came out when I was younger, when I was a child. We have The Lion King in 1994, I believe, and Toy Story, and The Little Mermaid in 89, and we have films like that are timeless. I know adults that go back and watch those films because they love them. I know adults that were adults at the time that went to see that movie because it was going to be incredible. And, Disney has defined fairy tales for us. A recent release was The Jungle Book, which rather than being based on the Rudyard Kipling novel, it's more based on the 1966 movie that Disney made back in the day. With the Bare Necessities song and everything else. And they have an all-star cast, and it's wonderful. I haven't seen it quite yet, but the reviews that are coming back on it are glowing. And Andy Serkis, who's an actor that I respect a lot, is directing, for the first time that I know of, a film. And it's another version of The Jungle Book, but it's actually based off the Rudyard Kipling novel. So it's different. But they're doing some retooling on it now because of the success of the live-action Disney Jungle Book. And, I've heard a lot of things, and I've said a lot of things myself about these live-action fairy tale movies coming out where, hey, this is, them trying to cash in on something that they own, and, they're trying to just make us go see the same story again. And in a way, that might be true. But if you're doing it right, maybe it doesn't matter. Because how many times do we go see the same story again and again and again? Think of how many romantic comedies there are. Every romantic comedy goes like this. Boy meets girl. Or, if the girl's the main character, girl meets boy. They fall in love, something happens, they have a little spat, someone screws up, someone makes a really bad mistake, and then they come and pledge their love to them again, and hey, I'm sorry that I did that, and I love you, and I want to be with you forever, and kiss. That's the end of the movie. That's romantic comedy. How many times have we seen that story? 2 weeks notice. 13 going on 30. Made in Manhattan. 10. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. What Happens in Vegas. While You Were Sleeping. There are a million. I'm just trying to think of one. When Harry Met Sally. There's a good one. This story happens over and over and over and over, and people continue to go and see it. Telling the same story a different way may not be bad. It's important to try to be unique. But there are some similar stories that we'll go and see every single time. How many revenge films do we have? We have Drive. We have Django Unchained. We have all kinds. We have, which one just came out? John Wick. We have these revenge tales, and they're almost all exactly the same. Taken has had 3 movies. They're all the same. It's all the same thing. It's action guy does action things because someone did something to, in John Wick, it was because these idiot Russian guys killed his dog. Okay, it was the thinnest plot ever. But, the movie ended up being fantastic, and it was really well shot, and the action sequences were well coordinated, and the dialogue was on point, and the visual style was awesome, and it ended up being a great movie that's getting a sequel. Even though when I heard the plot, when it was going to the theaters, I was apprehensive, and I laughed at it, actually, and I didn't go see it in theaters. Then I found out that it was great, and I ended up watching it and loving it. But we're talking about kids' movies. Kids' movies are moralistic. And we need to have a moral in there. Why? Because these movies are teaching tools for children. We're teaching them stories. I'll tell you right now, almost everyone's first experience with Shakespeare, at least in America, their first experience with Shakespeare was The Lion King. Because The Lion King is an adaptation of Hamlet. We're introducing them to culture. We're introducing them to society. Societal norms, and the concepts of good and evil. Because we don't necessarily come into this world knowing where the lines really stand. Because at least as a small infant, I would say probably up to 4 or 5, our intentions are purely selfish. And for good reason. We haven't learned any better, and we can't do anything for ourselves. So we need people to do it for us. So we cry to be fed and changed and cleaned, and when we can't sleep and when we're in pain, we cry because we can't do anything else. And that's fine as a baby. But you know what? Over the last 5-10 years, I've seen more and more people around my age crying and screaming for people to help them when they should learn to help themselves. To be honest, I guess I'm 23. I'm on, I guess I'm a millennial, even though I was born in 92. I'm not sure exactly where the line is, but it seems that I'm a millennial, and I'm the furthest thing from a millennial that you can possibly imagine. I don't do much social media. I get on Twitter, but honestly, most of the stuff that I do on Twitter is showing you guys cool stuff, hyping my, telling you guys that my new episodes and stuff are up, and every so often I'll have musings. I honestly don't get on, I have Facebook as well. I don't get on Facebook unless I need to contact someone directly, and I use it basically like email. I'm not a millennial. I don't like the hipster stuff. I hate my generation. I hate my generation so much. But we've kind of gone soft, at least in America. And I think other places as well, but I can only speak for America, because America, I know the society and I know where I live. We've kind of gone soft. We used to be, well, okay, look at how it was back in the 40s. And I go back to the 40s because the 40s were, what's called the best generation. It's where we get the idealized American, the idealized modern American, the idealized American man is, a 1940s American man. They're a soldier, or they're, it's strong, it's industrious, it's hardworking, And honestly, I can't find those traits in anybody else that, honestly, I sometimes have trouble finding them in myself because I get complacent. And I'm not blaming society on that. That's my own problem. But my generation seems to just suck at all this. Okay? We've grown up with the internet. I didn't really grow up with the internet. The internet was around, but I didn't grow up on the internet. Like, my little brother, he's 13. So honestly, he's known nothing but the internet and DVDs, and he doesn't know about a lot of the stuff that I knew about when I was a kid. We'd already gotten past dial-up by the time he was born. I would say that he's much closer to what a millennial experience would be, more than mine is. But I think I'm lumped in, or I don't know. I'm somewhere either in between, or I'm on the millennial line. I don't know where the generational line really changes. I would say that it would be, when the previous generation's kids can have kids. That would be the new generation. But that doesn't seem to be right. But the generation that we have now aren't wise. We're lost. We're looking for something to latch on to. I think that's why there's a lot of... Well, we've even seen people of my generation joining ranks with people like Al-Qaeda. And we've seen them shooting up movie theaters. And we've seen them doing all these things because they don't know what to do. This is a lot more serious than I thought it was going to be. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to be an adult. And they're looking for something to believe in. Because nowadays there doesn't seem to be much. And I think that children's movies should instill, one, a moral idea. The idea of the separation between good and evil. That should be something that's paramount. But also it should teach a secondary moral. And usually it's something along the lines of family is the most important, or, love conquers all. That's not necessarily what it needs to be every time. But those are two pretty good examples that you can glean from just about every kids movie that does have a moral. But kids' movies should also instill wisdom. It should be something that their parents can use to explain concepts to them. Moral concepts, social concepts. Remember when this happened in this movie and that, that wasn't the right decision. What the right decision is this. Or this is the right decision for this situation because, if you make this other decision, this will happen, like it happened in that movie, remember? It should be allegorical in a way, but also entertaining. Because a straight allegory can be a little heavy-handed sometimes. I would say a straight allegory that's a little heavy-handed would be Avatar. Not a kid's movie, but Avatar is pretty heavy-handed. with the environmentalism and everything else. And sure, we need to protect our environment, but, that's another topic for another day. And, it's a little heavy-handed with how, the Native Americans, which are what the Na'vi are, at one with nature and everything else. And then the evil white men, because they're all white men if you look. The evil white men come in and burn down their homes, and, it's a little heavy-handed. I enjoyed the movie, but it's heavy-handed. So, we need to keep things light because it's a kids' movie. But that doesn't mean that we need to trivialize everything. I think that one movie that did this very well recently was Utopia, if you guys have seen that. A topic that they talk about is racism, which I was actually very surprised about. I was really surprised that they would broach that sort of subject in a kids' movie. I was not prepared for it. And honestly, I went into this movie with low expectations. I didn't really like Frozen. I don't think Frozen really had much of a moral. It didn't have much of a story. It felt all over the place, and Inside Out was the same way. It had a story, but it felt all over the place, and the story didn't feel completely formulated. It felt more abstract. And honestly, I didn't quite agree with them at the end. But, everybody has their own opinion. But, they broached a very deep subject, but kept it light. And racism can be an incredibly touchy subject. Because, especially of late, it's caused a lot of ruckus. And not all of it was earned, in my opinion, but this isn't political. We're talking about film here. But in a way, film has mirrored the political issues of the day. A good example is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. No, sorry. Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Not the 2010 version, but the 1978, if I remember correctly, version that dealt with some civil rights stuff, because that's what was going on in the day. And there's been some of that kind of stuff going on today where people don't think that they're getting the treatment that they deserve, and they decided to talk about it. Which I think was a bold move. And I think that is something that does need to be talked about peacefully, and there needs to be a dialogue about it, and there needs to be equality for everyone. Equality. People don't get special bonuses. People don't get special rights because of their sexual orientation or their skin color or anything like that. Everything's equal. And I think that they said that in that film, and it was subtle enough that the adults would get it, but light enough that it wasn't heavy-handed and it didn't depress the kids. So I think it was done very effectively. And in the end, that's what a kids' movie should be. The kids' movie should be something that can engross the parents and the older children, and something that will entertain the younger children. And teach them something. Teach them something important about the world. Teach them something important about the world as it is today, but in a way that they can digest. I'm not going to take a child into a deep documentary about, the state of society today. Because they'll be bored out of their mind and they won't understand. That's meat. They can't do meat right now. They need something softer, something easier to digest, something easier to handle. So, we give it to them in a package that they can digest, they can understand. And I think that children who were very small children, 4 or 5, that saw that movie this year will look back in 10 years and they'll watch that movie again after a long time and they'll say, hey, I don't remember that being in there. Because they couldn't understand it at the time, but now they do, and they gained wisdom for it. A good example in my life is the Chronicles of Narnia series. A series that I've actually read somewhere around 25 times. Of course, a lot of that is audiobooks, where I would just play the audiobooks as I was going to sleep, because I didn't watch TV as I was going to bed. I listened to audiobooks. And I loved to read when I was younger. Don't really have as much time now, but I still do love to read. And every time I go through one of those books, which I haven't in a while, but I think I should again soon, I would get something new that I didn't notice. A little subtle thing from an interaction between two characters that took on an aspect that I didn't realize it had. And that's what an enduring story does. An enduring story takes on new life with every iteration of it. Takes on a new aspect. Takes on something that defines it from the last viewing, the last reading. And with that, good day and good filmmaking.